Hey everybody, Ryan again. Sorry about that noisy air compressor, but at least we got rid of the line noise, so that won't be making its way into the video this time. Right now we're gonna work on the front and rear suspension and get that swapped out. If not, at least taken apart today, maybe swapped out. We'll see how timing goes and everything. But you know, I still got the looks like a lot of work is gonna have to be done. Got under the car. Actually not too rusted under the car. Brake lines still look pretty good. Some of the connectors aren't great, but I think I'll be able to live with that as long as they thread back in straight. Subframe's got a little rust on it, but it seems to be straight. No cracking on the underbody or dents or bends or anything like that, so we should be good to go. So now let's take a look at this suspension. Alright, we're going to start up here in the front, and as you can see, it's been sitting a while. Got some rusty calipers there. You know, the steelies aren't doing so bad, but the tires are definitely shot. So now let's go from there. Well, I would say overall, in the scheme of things, it doesn't look, the springs are a little rusty. Rotor's definitely seen its better days, but no grooves, just rust. That'll come off pretty easy. Set of decent looking pads there. Somebody's already drained all the brake fluid, so that'll be interesting. And left the caliper off. So inside the caliper doesn't look too bad. Definitely a bit rusty for my taste. So we'll be measuring up the bore and checking on some things and see which caliper this really is. But that looks like a stock EP3 caliper. Those definitely don't look like 10 or 11 inch rotors. Also looks like most of our bolts are pretty much loose, so we'll see how that goes. Mount not looking too great over there, but I got a trick for that. It's a little rusty, so we may switch out mine, but wheel cylinder's already pulled out and everything, so they're definitely getting ready to start to do some work on here. One thing I don't know about is that strut. I'm not sure if that is truly a Honda strut or not, so we may have to do some research and figure that out and double check on the other side, because it does have a paper label on it. So we may still end up using these struts and springs if they do tend to be aftermarket. He was nice enough to leave me the control arm, or the tire rods and everything in here, so getting all that apart should be fun. Yeah, control arm's definitely gone. I wouldn't trust using that. One good bump on that should probably bend up. May just be surface rust, but just my gut feeling. And that ball joint shot, which is fine because I'll be basically destroying it, getting it off. You can see our little front end damage here. What's going to be interesting while we're speaking about that is this fender bracket right here. Got a good smashing, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to save that or not to line the fender and the headlight back up. But luckily I got the 04 and a little chop there and a chop here. Should be able to line it back up pretty easily and just weld it right there and be good to go. Alright, so with this McPherson strut setup, kind of like to leave it as tight as I can on the top until we get that ball joint to break loose. And the reason I said I'm not worried about it is because I generally use a fork. Splitters are sometimes a little bit better, but which to do that, we gotta straighten out this Carter pin here the best we can. Did a good bit of job wrapping it up in here, and just get in there with a set of pliers. It'll zoom so I can see here. And my pliers will cooperate. There we go. Grab that little booger. Now he actually broke a pin and wrapped it around, which works. Getting it out is going to be a little on the difficult side. I can tell that from here. So I'll pause this for a minute and fight with that, and then we'll get back to it. Alright, so now we got that off. Just a little bit of twisting and praying. And if you can see, what I did was actually roll the pin with the pliers to make it pull out all the way. Now that's going to be a 17 down there on the bottom, and we should be able to, if I got it up high enough, which I don't, so hold on a minute. Alright, so now we got up just high enough to get in there. Get it on there pretty good. Well, that's no good. That is going to be a pain. So that's stripped. That'll be a little bit of fun time to get taken care of. So let me figure out what our right side socket is going to be. Alright, so we ended up giving up on that side and completely stripped out on me. But this side we actually got off. See, there's a lot more grease. That ball joint boot's completely destroyed. But on the other side, since we're doing the hub conversion, and these control arms are pretty rusty with some shot bushings, probably not going to reuse them anyways. So we'll just see how that goes. We'll probably get it out in one piece with the control arm. It's going to take some tugging. Now there is a trick for these. We sell polyurethane in a tube. And what you can do is take these joints out, especially better to show you on an engine mount. And you take the mount out and you lay it down flat and you duct tape off one side and then fill it in with polyurethane from the tube all the way to the brim. Now cover your knuckle, just go to the top of this bolt here, which should be about even with the rim. Should actually stick out a little bit farther. And then you tape off the other side so all the urethane stays together. Let it sit for about 24 to 48 hours and you've got yourself some polyurethane bushings. Now it'll even work when these bushings are busted out like that. You bust it the rest of the way out and put a line of polyurethane around where the rubber bushing would go, and then reseat it back in there, pack it with polyurethane, and then tape it off just like before and let it sit so the polyurethane dries. It's kind of a cheap DIY polyurethane mount. Works pretty good actually. So on this side, these bolts are not loose, so we're going to be taking them off. And what you need is a 21 on the open end bolt size, or 7/8 works better. It's actually a little bit tighter, and a 19 over here on the head bolt size, and then we just zip those off. I don't think I'm gonna be able to hold the camera while I do it. No, not gonna happen, so just give me 1 minute. So as you can see, we got the bolts out. Not completely out, little tapping, they'll come the rest of the way out. And we did try to fork the ball joint, and it is completely seized in there. The suspension is actually so bad that it's absorbing the shock from the sleeve going in there. So that'll be fun. That'll just have to come out in one piece. No huge deal. Just like the other side, our wheel speed sensor's out. It's hanging up here. We'll need to undo the bracket for that, which is going to be a, looks like 10mm bolt. And we're going to try to save this brake line even though it's bled all the way. And that's this 12mm bolt right here. If we can get on it. Just give it a little tug. Should come right out. Alright, so away with the brake line. Now it's time to get the speed sensor out of the way before it gets cut up and crushed. Honestly, I have no idea if these speed sensors are any good or not, but they're pretty expensive, so we're going to try to hold on to them. So it's that 10mm bolt and just a little bit of a twist, and it will be on its way out. Bad thing about adjustable ratchets, they don't stay straight very well. Alright, so a little bit of persuasion, we get that out of the way. Now, since this is kind of still in our way a little bit, and we're probably going to end up replacing it, we're going to take out the second 10mm bolt right here, which is the other half of the bracket, which will allow it to drop farther back inside the frame. And I'm going to have to get stubby. So you get in there of our little stubby, and it's actually a lot looser. Let's go ahead and crank that back out. I'll save you some time on this. Alright, now that's cleared and out of the way, we can put this, just sit it over there on the other side of the frame. So now what we want to do is go ahead and get these knuckle bolts out. It's going to get a little loud. I'm going to need 2 hands for this so I can knock it through. Alright, so now we got our knuckle separated from the strut, and we're going to drop that out in just a minute. It's just a few bolts up top, and we got 1 bolt over there and 1 bolt over here for the control arm, and this wonderful pain in the butt tire rod in that hopefully we can knock clear out of there without too much difficulties. They like to get stuck like ball joints, especially in the rust, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, now just like the ball joint, this tire rod end is a 17mm right here. Just get on there as straight as possible. I hope she doesn't. Sure, she didn't. So you want to leave a little bit of thread on there because we're going to be knocking that with the hammer to get it to pop loose. I doubt my fork will get it, but we can always try it. But that looks like it doesn't have too bad a boot on it. Maybe a little low on grease, so we may try to save it. And we also got these sway bar links down here that we're gonna have to take off. And I believe those are 14s. And for some reason, the sway bar looks a little thicker than I remembered, so that may be a good thing. But to get the center links off, really the best thing to do is to slide the hub out of the way and try to line up your gun. And that's gonna take a stubby, so let me go grab one. Actually, we'll just use a swivel adapter because that stud's a little long, and carefully back it out. That's not good. Looks like that link is completely shot on the inside. So that's not going to help us at all. Give me 1 minute. Alright, so what we ended up having to do for that one was actually take our ball joint for it here and stick it behind the link and push until the ball for the link popped out. Then we put some vice grips around the ball to give it some tension, and now it's out. So completely destroyed, but out of my way. Now we will have to get the other side out, which is through here, and we're gonna try with the air gun, not right now because we won't need to right this second, but we're gonna try it with the air gun to knock it out, and hopefully it's not completely destroyed and we don't have to use the same measures. So right now what we're gonna work on, so I get this strut down, is this tie rod end. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this, and everybody kind of has their own dealings with it, but one is with a fork like I have. The other one is with heat and a hammer, or just a hammer, by tapping on the side here. But as you see, we got a lot of play there, so that's not really helping us. We may have to bolt things back together to get to it. And the other way is to actually take your nut and thread it from the bottom, like that, which is not the best thing to do if you got a messed up nut. And then once you got it on there by a couple threads, go ahead and take a hammer and whack it up. But it didn't go on there far enough, so that will be a whole nother deal. So let me get to this, and I'll get back with you guys in a minute. Alright, so now we're gonna get into taking out our strut. Did end up getting the tie rod end out, just with the fork, which completely destroyed it, but that's alright. We may be going to invert it eventually anyway. So we want to go ahead and disconnect the rest of this, and pop her out. That was probably going juice for a little bit. Now, if you come up here, you can see where we're going to drop it. It's going to be a 14 for the 3 on the outside and a 17 for the one in the middle. So we'll just give those a little zip. There's one. That's gonna be fun. I didn't want to have to take the cowl off. Maybe we can do something different about that. It's gonna have to come off anyways and replace the window, but it's just for time today. Hold on a second. Okay, well, I didn't mean to drop it out, but we were able to get it without taking the cowl off, just removing the little seal here. And we used a stubby on the back, or a swivel socket on the back, and dummy me didn't leave the nuts on part of the way, so as you can see, we dropped the whole thing all the way through. Got caught on the tire rod in. Perfect. So a little shimmy and a shake, and some adjustment down here. And off we go. I'm going to run this part number that's on here. Don't like the fact that it's an Excel. That's probably why it was a little on the squishy side. But that right there, hopefully it's just rust. May use those over the stocks, even though they're a little rusted. It actually looks like it's an Excel for possibly RSX, I'm not sure. I have to do some digging and some research on that. But time to do the other side. Well, it turns out that strut is for an EP1, which is still a 2000 to 05 Civic, but I leave a non-SI though. So maybe that's why I was sitting a little bit lower. We'll do some measurements later. But let's see if we can get this control arm link out here from the back. So we'll see if this one is just as messed up as the other one here in a second. Looks like it is, so we'll leave that be for now. I don't get prying on it in a little bit, but with this lower one disconnected, it's not going to stop us from getting the control arm out. So these control arms, if I'm not mistaken, are 19s, and they are 19s. So this one is on the bottom, hopefully not rusted. Hold on. So to zip it out, there's one out. Getting my socket back, had to do a little dissecting on the old air gun today. The clip went bad, so if I sling a socket and break it in my face, well, I'll know why. Alright, that bolt is out. A little tug of war here. Or maybe we just use the air gun. No, we're gonna tug of war. Hey, it's me again. Now I just realized I was inside. We were talking about doing rear suspension and front suspension today, so we're getting that jacked up right now. I also realized, if I can find it, that when we were taking out those center links, there is actually a Allen bolt in the middle of the center link that should come out, or should be held down while taking the nut out. So it's hard to see in the picture, but it's there. A little hole right there in the middle where it's white. You should actually take an Allen key and hold that, and then use a wrench closed in on the back side and get those loose. So just wanted to save anybody else from ripping up any unnecessarily damage on the control arm or the sway bar link. Alright, so we're running out of daylight. We might not be able to actually get into here and get it all off, but we're gonna at least see what it takes. Now it's gonna have to get jacked up a little bit more, but just in case, in the meantime, to get the strut out, it's gonna be right here inside the trunk, which is another reason for moving the plastic. But that looks like it's gonna be another 14mm bolt and some nifty finagling to get that other one to drop the strut out from the top. Okay, so back here we got our wonderful rusty rotors. Calipers don't look too bad. We'll probably just, well, this car is draining brake fluid, so we'll pop the whole caliper apart and everything. And then down here you got, you know, a few little bolts, one big bolt right here, and there's 3 little bolts on. Don't really have to come out unless you're taking the control arm out, which this one and the bushings don't look too bad. Not a lot of rust or anything, so we'll just pop this hub out, and then I'll do some measurements and stuff tomorrow and see if we'll actually end up switching that control arm out. But let's get to ripping on this setup. So everything down here is pretty much a 17mm, which makes things a lot easier. Not a lot of fighting. But we got one down here for the lower part of the hub. Looks like I'm gonna need to grab my 17 wrench to, no. No, it's working its way out. So there's the bottom one. Fight and drag it in a minute. And then we got our top one up here. Hold on for a minute. Alright, so we got those two separated. We're just held in by pressure. And we're definitely going to have to take out the speed sensor. It may be long enough to reach the ground, but actually, you just get this 10mm right here and it will come down. And then we're gonna have to do some prying down there to get that bushing out. And looks like this side we may end up having to use a wrench, so we'll see how that goes. And my air is off, so that's gonna take a minute. Alright, so while that's on and noisy, there's 10 millimeter right here. I'm gonna get on it. That is our wheel speed sensor little holder. It's gonna give us some stretch. It also may make it a little easier to actually get out in the long run. But for the dispenser itself, since we are going to take this hub off, it has a 10 millimeter right here on the back. Go ahead and pop that out. Now the annoying thing about these is, especially if they've been in here for a while, they don't really like to come out too well. So make sure nothing else is holding her in there. Give it a couple little taps and I'll be right back. Alright, as you can see, we got it loose, not with the no damage policy, but it is still rather stuck and not wanting to turn, so we will be JB or PB blasting that overnight. But let's see if we can at least get this hub down and suspension out. Yep, we had to get a ratchet for that. Hold on.